Welcome back to the battles between Bane versus Daredevil and who will win. Before we dive into the analysis, please remember to subscribe to my channel to support me. Thank you very much. The air in Hell's Kitchen had a new scent tonight. Not the usual city grit and despair, but something alien, a chemical tang of venom and raw, unchecked power. Daredevil, perched on a crumbling gargoyle, felt it deep in his bones, a tremor of wrongness that vibrated through the very pavement below. This was no ordinary thug. A hulking silhouette detached itself from the deeper shadows, moving with an unnatural grace for its size. Bane. He had come to Hell's Kitchen not for loot, but for dominion, drawn by the whispers of its guardian. The Red Devil, Bane's voice rumbled, a low growl that carried over the city's din. A protector who believes himself unbroken. We shall see. Daredevil dropped, a crimson blur, landing silently before the behemoth. He could hear the hum of the venom coursing through Bane's muscles, feel the seismic power radiating from him. The first strike was a blur of Bane's fist, wide and devastating. Daredevil dodged, twisting midair, his billy club a whistling arc that connected with Bane's forearm. It was like striking granite. Bane barely flinched, a cold smile playing on his lips. Faster than most, he acknowledged, but speed is fleeting. The fight became a brutal ballet of impact and evasion. Daredevil danced around Bane's thunderous blows, his radar sense painting a three-dimensional picture of every muscle twitch, every shift in weight. He ducked under a haymaker that would have caved in a brick wall, then countered with a series of rapid-fire jabs and kicks, targeting pressure points, joints, anything that might disrupt Bane's colossal frame. But Bane was relentless, absorbing the punishment, his eyes fixed with predatory focus. He moved with a strategist's precision, not just a brawler's rage, anticipating Daredevil's patterns, slowly closing the gap. Suddenly, a massive hand shot out, not to strike, but to grab. It seized Daredevil's ankle, yanking him off balance. The world spun as Bane swung him, an improvised weapon, towards a concrete wall. Daredevil, in a split second of pure instinct, bent his body impossibly, using the momentum to kick off the wall, twisting free from Bane's grip. He landed hard, rolling, but before he could fully recover, Bane was on him. A knee drove into his gut, knocking the wind from his lungs. Then Bane's hands were around his torso, lifting him. The raw, animalistic strength was suffocating. Daredevil felt his ribs groan, the air squeezed from his lungs. He heard Bane's chilling whisper, close to his ear. "You think you can protect this city, little devil? I will break its spirit, starting with yours." Bane began to bend, preparing his signature move, the spine-shattering arch. A surge of adrenaline, fueled by the screams of his tortured bones, ignited a desperate fury in Daredevil. With every ounce of his remaining strength, he screamed, not in pain, but in defiance, and drove his elbow with all the force he could muster into the only exposed part of Bane's venom system he could reach, the small, pulsating tube on Bane's wrist. The connection tube hissed, a sudden, violent spray of green liquid erupting into the night as the fragile mechanism shattered. Bane roared, a sound of shock and pain, his grip momentarily loosening as the venom surge faltered, sending a jolt of agony through him. Daredevil dropped, gasping, his body screaming in protest. Bane stumbled back, clutching his wrist, his immense power momentarily disrupted, his eyes burning with fury and a flicker of something new: respect. He glared at Daredevil, who slowly, painfully, pushed himself to his feet, swaying but unbroken. "This is not over, Devil," Bane snarled, his voice a promise of future torment. Then, with a final, contemptuous look, he melted back into the shadows, a wounded predator retreating, but certainly not defeated. Daredevil stood alone, bruised and battered, the metallic tang of blood in his mouth, knowing that Hell's Kitchen had just faced a true nightmare, and that the fight had only just begun. The air hung thick with the scent of rust and concrete, a suffocating blanket within the vast, echoing darkness of the warehouse. Here, where shadows clung like parasites, two titans of opposing worlds were about to collide, each a master of the unseen, yet utterly different in their command. Bane moved first, a mountainous shadow exploding forward, his very presence a concussion of sound and displaced air. He was a force of nature, driven by the raw, unbridled power of venom coursing through his veins, every muscle fiber screaming for impact. His charge was a thunderclap, designed to shatter and obliterate. But in the absolute blackness, where most would be blind, Matt Murdock, Daredevil, saw everything. His radar sense painted a vibrant, pulsing world of heat signatures, air currents, and the distinct mechanical hum of Bane's lifeblood, the venom pump. He didn't just see the attack, he felt its intent, its trajectory, the very ripple of muscle beneath Bane's skin. With a blur of crimson, Daredevil slipped under Bane's sweeping arm, a phantom in the gloom, his billy club a silent extension of his will. He didn't engage head-on. Instead, he danced, a whirlwind of acrobatic evasion, each movement a calculated insult to Bane's brute force. His club struck out, not at muscle, but at the delicate sensory points, a sharp crack against the side of Bane's head, a painful jab near the eye, searching, always searching, for the vulnerable tubing that sustained the monster. Enraged by the elusive strikes, Bane roared, venom surging, his bulk expanding, his blows now tearing through the environment. Concrete pillars crumbled, steel shelves buckled, the warehouse shuddering under the assault. He was a rampaging beast, smashing through obstacles that Daredevil effortlessly navigated, using the collapsing debris as both cover and weapon. Daredevil, however, saw the chaos as opportunity. He used the shattered landscape to his advantage, bouncing off collapsing structures, his movements a symphony of precision and controlled chaos. He darted in, a red streak, his radar sense locking onto the glowing pathways of Bane's venom tubes. With a sudden, explosive leap, he launched himself from a falling crate, spinning midair. His billy club, a blur of motion, lashed out with surgical precision. There was a sharp snap, a hiss of escaping gas, and the distinct, sickening sound of plastic tearing. Bane roared again, a sound of agony and fury, as one of his crucial venom lines was severed, the potent drug now leaking onto the grimy floor. The immediate drop in Bane's power was imperceptible to the eye, but Daredevil felt it, a subtle shift in the air pressure, a momentary faltering in the thrumming hum of the remaining venom. Bane, stunned and weakened by the unexpected blow, momentarily faltered, his rage turning to a desperate scramble to protect his remaining supply. This was the opening Daredevil had been fighting for. No longer just evading, he pressed his advantage. He moved in, a relentless crimson blur, his billy club a whirlwind of targeted strikes. He didn't aim for bone or muscle. Instead, he struck pressure points, nerve clusters, each blow a sharp, debilitating jolt that rippled through Bane's massive frame. A barrage of rapid strikes hammered against Bane's exposed neck, shoulders, and wrists. The Titan stumbled, his movements growing sluggish, his roars of defiance turning to grunts of pain. With a final, explosive burst of speed, Daredevil delivered a series of rapid-fire nerve strikes to Bane's spine and temples. The giant convulsed, his legs buckling, before he collapsed with a deafening crash, the remaining venom tubes hissing uselessly against the cold concrete. Bane roared, a guttural sound that vibrated through the concrete, and lunged. His fist, a wrecking ball of bone and sinew, cleaved the air where Daredevil had been a microsecond before. The man without fear moved with impossible grace, sidestepping the colossal blow, the wind from Bane's swing rustling his cowl. He was a dancer in a death arena, every movement economical, every evasion perfect. Bane's attacks were predictable to Daredevil's radar sense, slow-motion snapshots of destruction that were effortlessly avoided. The Titan slammed into a brick wall, pulverizing it into dust and shrapnel. But Daredevil was already behind him, a silent shadow. A precise kick landed against Bane's knee, eliciting a grunt of surprise, then another strike to a nerve cluster in his back. Bane spun, enraged, his eyes blazing with venom-fueled fury. But Daredevil was already gone, a blur in the periphery, his enhanced hearing tracking Bane's every labored breath, every shifted muscle. This was not a fight of equals. It was a demonstration of a predator toying with its prey. Frustration twisted Bane's features into a mask of pure wrath. His brute force, his celebrated strength, was useless. He was hitting air, pavement, anything but the elusive devil. With a desperate snarl, he triggered a maximal dose of venom. His muscles bulged further, veins pulsed like thick cables, and a terrifying animalistic roar tore from his throat. He was bigger, stronger, faster in a purely destructive sense, but his movements became less controlled, more berserk. This was the moment of truth. Daredevil, sensing the shift, knew this was Bane's last, desperate gambit. He met the charging behemoth not with evasion, but with a calculated, blinding flurry of strikes. Each punch, each kick, targeted weak points, pressure points, precisely calculated to disorient and disable. He spun beneath a gargantuan swing, then launched himself upward, delivering a devastating full-force elbow strike to the unprotected venom port on Bane's head. The connection sparked, and the flow of the drug was interrupted, sending a jolt of pain and confusion through Bane's system. The colossal figure staggered, his chemically induced rage sputtering as his body betrayed him. His knees buckled, and Bane, the man who broke the bat, collapsed onto the slick pavement with a thud that shook the street. He lay there, twitching, defeated, his immense power rendered impotent by superior skill and intellect. Daredevil stood over him, breathing steadily, his senses already scanning the silent streets. He was the quiet victor, a testament to the undeniable truth that even against overwhelming strength, precision, agility, and an unyielding will could always prevail. In this brutal dance of shadows and sound, Daredevil proved superior. His mastery of the environment, his strategic brilliance in targeting Bane's critical weakness, and his unparalleled skill in close-quarters combat allowed him to overcome overwhelming brute force. He didn't just win, he dismantled the legend, proving that even in the darkest corners, skill and precision can conquer raw, unthinking power, securing his victory 7 times out of 10. What do you think about this war? Please share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you all very much.